Hey, what's up, guys? Today I'm here with Miranda. She's a former student from OCAD's Environmental Design.
Yeah.
And I'm a former student from Ryerson School of Interior Design. And today we're going to be talking about the types of differences and similarities that are within these programs and help you guys maybe decide whether you want to pick one program over the other. So we actually got into both programs. So I actually got into both the RSID and ED, and you
And
did
I
as
also
well.
as well.
All right. So first thing I want to talk about is kind of I guess your experience with the types of things your professors focused on, like design principles.
Oh, well, in this design aspect, here you go down. Yeah, there are some. So you do have to take a set of mandatory courses that kind of get your foundation a little more solid in terms of creative thinking. Not so much in more software-based items like AutoCAD, Revit, and stuff like that. They just assume you use whatever you're comfortable with. A lot of the beginning courses gives you a lot of freedom in which you get to do whatever you like. Say like for drawing and sketching courses, in the first year of environmental design, we actually had a mandatory drawing courses. Here you draw a map, any map you like, or here's a picture, you can make it out of 3D, but it's only a 2D abstract picture. So there's a lot of projects that were like that in the first 2 years of the environmental design course.
Well, I think with Ryerson's interior design program, they also do a lot of exploration in the first year. I remember my first year not really even focusing on interior design projects.
Right.
So we actually did we did a lot of model making in first and second years, and we also had a similar to you guys. We had a dedicated course for drawing, which I hated because I don't like drawing, and I'm not very good at it. But just goes to show you don't really need to know how to draw very well and to be an interior designer.
Right.
There's a lot of other skills that follow that are much more important, especially with the communication side, right? When talking about, I guess, like the proposals and like the projects of our courses, normally we would have a given site, and we would have to make our focus based on the context of that site. With our projects, like once we're kind of given like the project outline, right, we have to play within the parameters of that and then use those restrictions to see what we can make of the project. And I found that, especially with my time there, if that type of project that they're giving you isn't for you, right, then it's really, you kind of just have to shut your eyes and just run through it, just to get it done if you want to get out and graduate, because they test you in like a variety of branches of interior design. Yeah, so you have like a taste of like, I know I really don't like office design now, so.
Yeah. Actually, well, we do have courses that have a set of parameters, and like you said, we have to push through it because I realize I hate doing things that are commercial. And it's different from professor to professor. During my first 2 years, there are a lot of restrictions. I'm not saying that we have so much more freedom, but it seems like ED has a lot more freedom than RSID in the first few years. We also have to do site measure. We also have to do like proposals and stuff like that. But it's just that there wouldn't be a lot of, no, you can't do that, or no, this is not good for it. There would be a lot more pushing of the idea that you already have. They would not ask you to change your idea entirely, but they would be like, you should modify this in order to fit the parameters a little better. You should do a little bit of this in order to suit the clientele needs a little better. But they will never say no to a project or to your idea, because that's not what OCAD is basically built upon.
I think there's, like, you can probably like relate to this really well, where there's an upcoming deadline where a lot of people, that you and maybe a lot of your friends either can barely finish it on time or can't finish it on time based on kind of like the conditions of like your work environment, right? Because I know, especially during like midterm season, or when you guys have kind of like submissions that are due and checkoffs as well, it gets like crazy, and then people like like, you know, they go a little like crazy in the head, and then they're like, no, like I gotta finish this drawing, or I gotta finish this illustration, or I gotta finish my booklet.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we also did a lot of graphics in a sense, where we had to put together a presentation booklet. I'm not, did you guys ever touch upon that?
Do you mean like even in first, second years that you
Yeah, it's like they kind of expect you to just like know it. They're like, oh, put together like a process book. But like I think a lot of people actually just start off with either using Microsoft Word, or like before they start to learn InDesign. But they kind of ask for a proposal book or a process book, right, to kind of show your ideation. They give you extra marks for if your booklet looks nice and it fits your idea. But with presenting your projects, did you guys do that through like PowerPoint or?
The funny thing is, I don't really recall having to do any booklets or any formal proposal that requires you to look presentable. Okay. Like their basic requirements only ask you to type up a proposal, and it doesn't necessarily have to look nice. But obviously, there has to be enough materials for there. You know, sketches, site photos, presidents, yada yada, research. Those are obviously included, but you know, there's never people who are gonna take their time to, you know, put it through in InDesign, maybe Photoshop it a little and stuff like that. There's like during the first and second year, there isn't any people who do that. Only up until the third year, where people start focusing on their thesis, they start making booklets and proposals that are presentable, or like you know, more elaborated or more refined in order to make their thesis more presentable. But during our first, second years, this was not a requirement, and I don't see any like mind-blowing, beautiful graphics.
Like that was a big learning curve that I had to get over. I'm still not super amazing at it, but it was something that I was kind of thrown into. I remember my first and second years, even just like putting together a book, I was like, how do I do this? How do I use InDesign? How do I make it look nice, right?
But that's the same thing. You guys were thrown into Adobe suites, whereas we were kind of thrown into an AutoCAD, Revit, and if anyone else was interested, it would be more like 3ds Max. We never got these like formal education for AutoCAD or Illustrator. A lot of people who ended up just being interior designers, a lot of my friends actually stuck with Illustrator to do plans for their thesis years and stuff like that. Whereas I was lucky enough that in my high school education, I was able to learn AutoCAD, you know, like a line and basic tools that was able to get me through university. However, OCAD does not offer these courses. They as a mandatory or as part of the curriculum. You could learn them on the side, you know, for summer credits and whatnot, but it was expected of you to know these programs, or at least one or two of them, so then they could assist you through the years, you know.
Because interior design at Ryerson, they actually in later years, like now, they prefer you use Rhino, which I'm not too sure why. But I think actually for a couple of years they missed out on AutoCAD, because we used to have a formal AutoCAD like training class, and now we don't. I heard something like they were reintroducing the course back into the program, but I'm not too sure where that was going, because they basically reverted all their efforts into using Rhino, the 3D modeling program. We do get kind of like some of this like technical formal training, but like a lot of stuff you just kind of have to learn on your own. I'm sure that goes the same with you.
Exactly.
It's just
different programs.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to start using the more rapid prototyping machines with like 3D printing and laser cutting. You're forced to learn this because I mean that's the basis of model making, right?
I guess like another thing that in terms of professional preparation, like preparing for interviews, resume preparation, as well as like putting your portfolio together. Coming out of ED, did you feel like, how did you feel? Like, did you feel ready? Did you feel scared? Like,
let's just put it that way. For me at least, everything you work up to, which is the thesis, is the only thing that could basically try and get you into a job, because it's the most complete project that you'll ever have coming out of OCAD. The only reason being you took 1.5 years to kind of prepare for it, starting from scratch, starting from proposal, precedents, and everything. This is your this is to show your ability to be able to research, to do market research, to do proposals, which are everything that, you know, as a junior interior designer should be capable of. Yep. I'm not saying you should only focus on thesis, but if you can show that throughout your 4 years of school, I think it will be able to get you or land a job a little more easier, because a lot of people now, they always think, you know, you can learn AutoCAD, you can learn Illustrator, but your ability to think, we have no control over that. Yeah. So they're looking for people who are willing to think, who are willing to be able to problem solve, and who has the creative solutions to help their company grow or whatnot, right? So that was, I think, was the most important thing, and the asset that I may have when going into the industry.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about Ryerson?
That's crazy, because the year before me was the last year to actually have a feature a thesis. Oh. And our thesis was it wasn't a year and a half. It was just 1 year. Okay. 2 terms. But my year was the first year that didn't have the actual opportunity to develop a project throughout an entire school year. And I know there's a lot of controversy over this, and the students kind of like, you know, getting angry because, you know, coming into the school, you expected like your last year to be kind of like your end project, right? Right. Yeah. The product of your 4 years of being there, and a lot of people were either disappointed or like that they couldn't like formally like continue and develop their ideas. But with that said, we had an opportunity to kind of explore more areas of interior design. And different through different projects.
So what did you guys end up doing? What, it's just more courses, or
it's just more projects. Would not be as developed as a thesis, but I feel like it kind of expands your knowledge on the different areas of interior design rather than focusing directly on that specific project that you guys have with your thesis.
But you do have to keep in mind that in OCAD, environmental design is not an interior design program. You could branch into it, but you could also branch into being an architect, a landscape designer. So the opportunities are a little bit bigger in a sense when it comes to
branching out into different industries.
When you don't know what you want to do exactly. But like for people who are in RSID now in Ryerson, they know they want to be an interior designer. They can go as far
Except
as
for me.
Hey, but you know, they can go as far as like taking the NCIDQ and being a registered interior designer. But in our program, I think maybe like 30% of us wants to be an interior designer. Other people are who are looking forward into the technical aspects of stuff, like being an architect. You know, like it's a basis for taking masters in architecture, getting a license. Other people are more into doing, you know, hands-on work such as woodworking, plastics, and metal fabrication. So, you know, we could branch into a lot of different industries if we want to. However, that being said, opportunities come big, but the risks are bigger too, because we don't have the more solid foundation that you guys have in interior design, where, you know, you guys start from the very beginning and build on that basis, whereas we have a foundation of various different items. We touch a little bit on architect, touch a little bit on interior design, because during my years in ED, they weren't really focused in interior design. Right? Only up until the 4th year, when they started to gear it towards to interior design, where they start having more courses of interior design. Whereas back in my first 3 years, they were more geared towards architects, and a lot of people who finally realized that, hey, maybe they aren't going into the
Yeah.
stream that we want, and the courses are starting to reduce on
On
more
the
focused.
diversity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you know, building structures and stuff like that. People are starting to get less and less interested because they start diverting towards the interior design courses. A lot of people actually decided not to pursue this bachelor degree anymore because they rather, you know, go into a program that has the word architecture in it, you know, because they started being more focused into interior design, and the courses are starting to fill up. And apparently, I think from what I heard, interior design is a mandatory course in third year now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Don't take my word for it, but so I've heard from my fellow you know, recent graduates that interior design became a mandatory or, like, you know, a more important course.
That concludes part 1 of this little talk. Again, special thanks to Miranda Lee for being featured in this video. Feel free to check out some of her ceramics, and I would recommend following on her Instagram because she's always posting her process videos, educating others a little bit more about what she does, and overall just making really beautiful pieces. I'll see you guys in the next week's video.